All right. Well, I wanted to come on here today and talk a little bit. This is a video in the vein of being uniquely you. Now, why am I doing this? A month or so ago over on LinkedIn, I just did an article called Being Uniquely You, and I like you just the way you are. And there were quite a few people, actually, about 4,000 people that signed up within about a month that wanted to learn more. So I'm kind of going in this vein because I think that that's something that I know for me is something that is relevant. Sometimes we feel alone, we feel like we're a little different, and that's okay. The problem is, most of the time we don't think that's okay. We're afraid of being who we really are. And so because of that, we just feel different, right? Okay. And so let me give you a little bit of an idea, right? Is that and again, since this is a live video, if you're here with me, I'm recording this live, so go ahead and post something in the comments so that I know that you're here. And if you're watching this later, great, thank you. Especially if you're watching it on YouTube, make sure to click subscribe so that you can get more of these videos. But what I wanted to do today is share with you an experience that I had in New York City a few years ago. And this was something that just kind of came into my mind today. Actually, as I was thinking about David Bowie, because it relates to David Bowie. Okay, so hold on, because I'm gonna tell you that story here and tie this all together because I think that sometimes uh, w- like I said, we feel alone. We feel like maybe that we're the only ones in the world who like something or who think a certain way. And you see this more and more, especially if what you think or what you like might not be what's in the mainstream. Okay. A lot of times we try to hide, we don't want to let other people know who we really are. And so the purpose, again, is to share some stories with you, but also to let you know it's okay to show up and to be you. And I'm going to give you some tips as well on how to do it in a non-threatening way, right? So I know before I've done a video on let your freak flag fly, and I know that probably scares some people, and they're like, "No way, am I going to go down the road carrying this flag?" But you'd still like to kind of test the waters and see, are there really other people out there like you? And I promise you that there are, and I'm going to give you or share some experiences with you that I've had in my own life that show you that there are and what you can, in fact, do. Okay. So, a few years ago, I was in New York City. I was giving a training. And typically, when I travel like that for work, if I can, I like to spend some time in the afternoon, if I've got time off, or maybe take a day off and actually go and do some things while I'm there. And so when I was in New York, I was looking around for what should I do? And I saw that there was a David Bowie exhibit at the Brooklyn Museum. So I'm like, cool, I'm in Manhattan. I get done. I think if I remember right, it was one of those where we got done around noon. And so I'm like, great, I can go back to the hotel, drop my stuff off, get on the subway, get down to Brooklyn, and be able to be there and go through this exhibit for a few hours. So I do that, throw my stuff back in the hotel, hop on the subway, head down there. Now I get to the Brooklyn Museum. It's pretty quiet. I mean, there wasn't a lot going on that day, and I go up and I'm like, yeah, I'm here to buy tickets for the David Bowie exhibit because you had to buy separate tickets for that exhibit. And the person said, "Oh, I'm sorry, sir, but we've sold out of those tickets for today." So here I am thinking, shit, I came all the way across town to come down here, and now I'm not even going to be able to get in and see the exhibit. But the lady who was saying that said, Unless you're a member, are you one of our members?" And I said, "Well, no, but tell me more." And she said, "Well, if you're a member, then we can let you in." So I'm like, "How much is the membership?" Okay. I bought a membership for the whole next year to the Brooklyn Museum just so I could go in and see this David Bowie exhibit. Okay. So I go in And I mean, amazing stuff there. If you know anything about David Bowie, he was just a fabulous artist for so many different reasons. And maybe I'll tell you some other stories about him and about kind of the influence that he's had on other um videos. Okay. Because David Bowie is one of those people as well who people looked at him and thought he was a little weird, you know, but he didn't care. He showed up exactly as he was. He did what he did, and he created some amazing music. In fact, he's probably one of the few artists that has had such a huge shift in the different kinds of music that he has done over the years. And so I've got a lot of respect for David, and that's why again, being able to go to that exhibit, I was all on board. So I go into the exhibit, I geek out for a long time in there, 2 to 3 hours until they close down. I closed the place down at 4 or 5 o'clock whenever it closed, right? But I was going around looking at all of the different things, seeing some of the costumes. In fact, there was a lot of stuff where there were like the handwritten lyrics that he had done to begin with that were up there. And so I was listening to some of his music while I was reading some of the stuff. So that gives you a little context of the story. So I get done, and usually on the way out, there's always some sort of a bookstore. So I stop and I pick up this big ass book. Okay. Oops, got to go this way. David Bowie is inside is actually what it's called. But it's a book that actually goes through and shows and has pictures of a lot of the things that were in the exhibit. So I bought that. I bought some other stuff, put it all in, they gave me a little shopping bag. Okay, go back to the subway because I got to head back into Manhattan for the evening. So I get on the subway and, I kind of sit down. There weren't very many people actually on at that time. So I was able to get a seat. And I look across the subway and there's this man who's looking at me. He's probably 10 years older than me. I would guess something like that. He's got a very artistic look to him. Okay, you can tell that he's got some money. The way that he was dressed, his hair was in kind of a little different do that makes you realize this is an artistic kind of person at nature, but dressed very very well. And so as I sit down, he looks over at me and he smiles. He just smiles. And again, for those of you that are riding on subways, it's not normal, for people to smile at you. And he smiles, he looks at me, he looks down at my bag, the bag that I'm carrying all of my stuff in because it says, David Bowie inside or whatever. It was some kind of branded bag from the museum. So he obviously knew that I had just been there. And so he smiles at me, and what he does is he pulls out his sleeve and he pulls his sleeve up a little bit. And on the inside of one of his forearms is a Ziggy Stardust tattoo. And he smiles at me and he goes, "Did you enjoy the exhibit?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it was total." We started getting into it, talking about it. He's like, "Yeah, I've been 4 or 5 times. It closes next month or whatever." And so there we were on this subway for a few minutes until he needed to get off at his stop, talking about David Bowie, his love for David Bowie. And my gosh, anybody who gets a tattoo of that means you're committed. So, what do we learn from that, right? Well, again, I'm sitting here carrying this bag around that says David Bowie on the outside of it, right? So obviously, anybody and everybody looking at me knows that that's where I've been, or that I must like David Bowie somehow. The fact that he had a tattoo and he showed it to me was kind of like that wink, wink. Hey, you know what? We like the same thing. Now, can we do that in other parts of our life? Because again, he had a tattoo, but it was covered up, right? And so other people most of the time wouldn't know unless they saw the tattoo. And he showed me his tattoo. He could tell that I was probably his kind of person. And so he revealed that to me, right? I was already kind of showing it openly. Now, again, what do we learn from this? Well, if there's something that you like, what if you actually show a little bit of that to the public? Now, for a lot of people, they're not even going to know, they're not even going to recognize it. But to the people who know, they're going to start to see and they're going to have that affinity with you. Now, again, that was my experience in New York City. Can it happen other ways? Yes. And let me give you some examples. Okay. A few months ago, I was doing some work with one of my clients and had gone to their employee all employee meeting and was talking and helping them along with that. And as part of it, there was some kind of team building exercises that we went through. Right. So some of us went on a hike in the forest right there, and there were four of us that kind of came back and sat down before we went back to our rooms for the evening, and we're just talking. And they found out that I had podcasts, and so they were asking a little bit about the podcast, what kind of stuff I talk about. And so I started sharing with them some information about, what I know, what I do, what's on the podcast as well, because they only knew me, kind of from the business relationship that I had with their company. And so as we're sitting there talking, there's four of us around, and I look over and one of the ladies who's sitting there is wearing a necklace. Now, this necklace that she was wearing, I know what the symbol means. Okay. And it is a spiritual symbol. And she started asking me some questions that were a little spiritual or esoteric. And so as she was doing that, I said, I noticed the necklace that you were wearing, that you're probably a little bit of a spiritual person or a little bit more esoteric. And the other, one of the other ladies, there were two guys, me, another guy, and two ladies. And the other lady looks over at me and goes, "Yeah, Mr. Chakra bracelet," because what had happened is this bracelet that I was wearing actually was shown. I wasn't doing it on purpose. It was hot. I had taken off my jacket, and this other person could see that I was wearing this and knew that there again was a connection. So three of the four of us actually knew we had something in common. And so for the next hour, we talked about some different spiritual, esoteric kinds of things. Okay. Now, at the end of that, even though the other person that was there wasn't really interested, he was interested in the conversation. And at the end, he goes, "Wow, that was really interesting. I never thought about some of the things like that." So again, there was another situation where something I was wearing, something this other lady was wearing, let us know that there's probably something that we have in common. Because what you will find is we are much more in common with other people than you realize. And so sometimes things like that, tattoos, different jewelry that people might wear, maybe a t-shirt, if somebody's wearing an AC/DC t-shirt, man, I know I'm going to like them, right? Because I like AC/DC, they like AC/DC, we can talk about it, right? And so, those are little things that you can actually do that let people know a little bit more about you without it being scary. Because, okay, yes, somebody might go, AC/DC sucks, I hate them, but they're probably not going to do that. But it probably will create a conversation with someone who is also interested in AC/DC, as an example. So there's a couple of examples. I got more. Okay, so let me just talk to you a little bit more about some of them. One of them is I did my master's work at the University of Southern California, USC, Trojans, and there is a sign. So when we're playing football games, we do the V, victory sign, right? Which actually we had before Winston Churchill, but we won't tell him that. He was the one that made that famous, right? And during the football games, we'll go fight on for all to see. Our men fight on to victory, right? So we use that sign, that symbol, the two finger V sign, which I love for a couple of reasons. It means fight on to victory, but it also means peace, right? Which I'm all about peace too. So I love this sign because it can mean both of those things. But what happens is, if I'm out and somebody's wearing something that maybe from USC, I know that. Or if I'm wearing something, often what people will do is they'll just give me the fight on sign and we both kind of wink at each other like, yeah, right? Or they'll actually say something, because a lot of times when we sign off in emails or other things like that, if I know it's another USC person that I'm talking to, usually the sign off, instead of see you later, it'll be fight on. Okay. Because that's, again, something that we have in common, some value system that we have because we both went to that school together. Okay. So, again, there's a couple of different examples, um, again, from this book. Maybe later I'll show you some of the stuff in this book because it's just amazing. Um, so back to the beginning, right? As far as what we were talking about, if you're one of those people who feels like, you know what, there's nobody else out there like me, I promise you, there are people like you out there. There are people who love you. There are people who accept and love you exactly as you are. Right? That's why, I talk a lot about Mr. Rogers at different times, because that was a message that little children needed to hear. It's okay to be you, and you're special just the way you are. Well, you know what? As adults, we need to hear it too. So I'm here telling you, as an adult, you're special. You matter. And I like you just the way you are. And it's okay to be just the way you are. So if you're out there watching this and you got a Ziggy tattoo, pull up your sleeve and show me, because I love you, right? Because we both have David Bowie in common. If there's other things about you, just take a little chance, right? Because a lot of these things, like I told you, just do something little, like wearing something that represents who you are, because that will resonate to other people. In fact, you probably don't even realize, but there are certain things that are behind me in this video right now that let you know a little bit about who I am as a person. And they're put there on purpose. They're put there on purpose so you get to know a little bit more about me, because there's going to be some of you that are going to look at that and go, man, I like that guy, or I have that in common, right? Like one of those pictures up there. Let's see if I can get my finger right there. Great Pyramids in Egypt, right? I've had several people when I've been on a call talk about that they've been there as well. Something that we have in common, and we can talk about Egypt together. But anyway, that's just one. So kind of like the Where's Waldo books, every time you watch one of my videos, be kind of looking in the background and trying to see if you can figure out and learn a little bit about me. All right. So with that, I'm gonna sign off for this time. But again, realize you are special. No matter how alone you feel in the world, there are other people out there that love you, and there are other people out there just like you, going through a lot of the same experiences that you do. In fact, I'll just sign off with this too. I was talking to one of my friends today, and it was a personal conversation, so we won't go there. But a lot of the things that I was talking to my friend about today are what she happens to be going through right now, are experiences that I have gone through in my life before. Now, she was kind of embarrassed to share some of it, which I understand. I was embarrassed to share it when I was at that point too. But to realize, again, our relationship now is at a different level because she knows I've gone through some of the things that she's going through as well. And the same is true for you. There are other people out there that are going through some of the same things that you've gone through, and it's okay. Okay. There's other people out there, no matter how embarrassed you are about certain things that have happened to you, or how embarrassed you are about, oh my gosh, I can't let people know this about me because they're going to make fun of me. There's probably tens or hundreds of thousands or millions of people out there that like and do the same thing, and they won't make fun of you. You just got to find them, right? So the more authentic you are, the more you show up and just be who you're going to be. Because really, who are you going to be anyway, other than yourself? Everybody else is already taken. So you might as well just be you. So with that, kind of wrap up here again. when I record these live videos, if you're on with me, and you're listening along, if you put a comment in like, "Well, that was crap, Jason," or "I really like that," often I can actually see that you're here, and we can kind of continue on the conversation if you want to, um, as well. So I'll hang out just for a little bit longer, because at least on my viewer, I can see that there's some people that are watching live with me right now. So sometimes the comments don't come through, sometimes they do. But hey, if you're here with me and you want to chat a little bit, I'm happy to do that as well. So maybe what I'll do, because I will share another experience. I'll probably share this one with you later too. But I will tell you again, as a music nerd. Okay, let me get back to. And for those of you that are not familiar with the Ziggy Stardust, it was a persona that David did, and so that is Ziggy. Okay, so you can kind of get an idea from the for the tattoo. But anyway, so where I was going to go is, let me find the page again. Is to be someplace and actually see, because as somebody who's written a few songs that aren't very good, when you see, for example, handwritten for Space Oddity, right? And I will tell you, actually, that was one of the experiences that I had, that I'll share with you now. I'll probably share with you again too. But when I was in the Brooklyn Museum, and I was, I'd listened to that song, I don't know how many times. If you're familiar with the song, right? Ground control to Major Tom. Commencing countdown, engines on. Okay, Space Oddity. Bum ba bum ba bum ba bum bum ba bum ba bum ba bum ba bum bum on the chorus line. Okay. But I'd listened to that song, I don't know, hundreds of times. But when I was standing there in the museum and I was looking at the handwritten lyrics, so that those are the guitar chords for it, but I was actually looking at the piece of paper that he wrote those lyrics on, and next to it was the inspiration behind the song. And so, it's not in this book, but there's a picture when some of the first space missions were put out into outer space, and they took pictures back of the Earth. And Carl Sagan referred to it as kind of the blue dot of Earth. That you see just this expanse of black, and then you see this little pale blue dot. And that was actually the inspiration behind that Space Oddity song. And if you listen to it again, because as he was writing that, he sat down and tried to envision or put himself in the situation of one of those astronauts who is out there. And so again, as you listen to the lyrics, it goes through the whole thing to where at the end, here I am floating round my tin can, right? So he goes out on a little spacewalk outside. And what would happen if something happened and he doesn't make it back home? And in fact, that's what the song is about. If you notice at the end, tell my wife I love her so. And just the whole idea of what would it be like if you were that astronaut floating out there around your tin cup and knowing that you're not going to make it back home? What would be the last thoughts that you would think about? What would go through your mind? You'd want to tell your wife that you loved them. You'd want to tell other people that you loved them, right? And so listen to that video again. In fact, go over to my website. I'll end up posting this up over there with a post with this title. The title of this video, I think it was "Show Me Your Ziggy Stardust Tattoo." You'll find that later, but I'll put some other videos down below there from David, because man, it's just amazing. He was an amazing artist, and like I said, when you understand some of the reason or the meanings behind some of the songs as well, it takes on a totally different form. And in fact, it did for me. As I was sitting there, I popped my headphones in. I was listening to Space Oddity while I was going through the museum as well, and just had a very profound impact on me. In fact, I was crying a little bit. So there we go. Jason cries. Okay. In fact, I cried this morning on something else, but that's for a different video, not for this one right now, to tell you about that. So anyway, I'm going to wrap off because I've got another video that I have to record here really quick. But have a great rest of your day and realize you are special. I like you. Other people like you. So just be you, because that's who we want to be with anyway. See ya.